We've all been hanging on this proverbial to be continued cliff, but that all is over tonight as we follow Nick on his journey for love. Let's get into it. Welcome to The Bachelor, only here on AfterBuzz.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AfterBuzz TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
Yes, let it begin. Let the sex conversation
Buzz?
begin.
Why am I just putting this together right now?
Oh, you didn't get that?
Buzz the
Yeah.
Bumblebee.
Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah, I mentioned that earlier.
Oh man,
You
I'm
guys.
slow.
Ashley's not too quick on the uptake.
I'm Brooks Forster, you guys. I'm your host tonight. Danny is away. He's in Ecuador. We miss you, Danny. A love shout out there for you. A love shout out? Is that a thing?
Yeah, we just made it a thing.
now.
It's a love shout out. And to my left,
Hey everybody, I'm Kristina Zias. So excited to be back for the first fantasy date. And we have two very special guests on.
Thank you.
We have Jared. Jared, introduce yourself. Where can they find you? It's his first time in the studio. We're so excited to have him.
First time on AfterBuzz.
is this
yeah.
your first time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Listen. Hey, you're popping
Whenever
my cherry,
Ashley
popping
came-
my AfterBuzz
Damn,
cherry
yeah.
today.
Jared, for the people who are listening and can't see you, remind people what season you're on. Give them a little.
Yeah, so my name is Jared Haibon. I was on season 12 of The Bachelorette, which is Caitlin Bristow's season.
No one
and
needs
then,
a reminder. We all
Oh, well,
know.
you know,
and
just
then,
in
nice.
case.
It's nice.
And then I was on Bachelor in Paradise season 2, and then I was on Bachelor in Paradise season 3.
Okay. And next to
It's a good
him,
resume.
you guys
it's not bad.
obviously recognize this pretty face. It's Ashley I.
Hi guys, it's Ashley I. And I am wearing my Kim Kardashian crying shirt, not only to honor myself, but also our famous crying bachelor, Nick Viall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seriously.
He did cry a lot tonight.
He did cry. He's been crying a lot during the season.
Yeah. So when did you first pick up on that? When were you like, Jared, look, dude, you cried a lot. Because you know Nick.
Yeah, listen, we both know Nick. We all know Nick here.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
good guy, great guy. He is crying a lot. I'm trying to think of the moment where he was crying, where it just kind of put me over the edge a little bit.
It was a couple episodes ago.
It was last episode because I remember seeing him cry again, and it was somewhere random. It might have been I can't remember exactly where it was. I was like, damn, he's crying again? Like, he cries more than Ashley I. Holy shit.
I
Can
know.
I swear
I love
it's
how
a
you're the
lot?
standard of crying too much. Like, if you cry more than
I know.
Ashley I, it's just you're
Yeah,
crying way too
I've
much.
set a quota, and I think Nick's about to tie it.
Yeah, which is interesting. Yeah, he's not going to be happy about that, but he's definitely, I think he's cried as much on this season as you have on any one of your seasons.
But are you,
Definitely my bachelor season.
But
And-
you just cry harder.
But right. Mine's more like,
Yeah.
and then he's just got a little like tear wipe.
His is like tearing wipe, yeah.
but are you
Yeah,
fr-
you upped, like, you kind of went up to Mesnick. Like, you became
Yeah.
the next. You
Yeah.
rose the bar.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, yeah, to your point, he's kind of giving
But-
little tears.
Did Messick just have a moment, or was he constantly crying like that?
But he had that moment, but it was enough to,
Yeah,
Okay.
it was a moment.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you're frustrated by Nick's tears because they seem disingenuine, or because
No, I wouldn't say I'm frustrated by Nick's tears. I would say I noticed that he's been crying a lot.
Jared
believe
watching this
his
show,
tears?
pulling his hair.
I know, yeah, I wouldn't say I'm... But I just remember... Well, the reason I think maybe more so is because I remember when he cried with Vanessa. And I remember thinking, holy... Can I swear, by the way?
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Okay.
consider
I mean,
Shit down
Holy
hill.
shit,
Shit
it's
down
fine.
hills.
Okay, perfect. Well, I remember watching the date with Vanessa on his first one-on-one, and he started crying on the date with Vanessa, and it was such a human moment where he just kind of let the moment get the best of him, because he kind of, I at least in my opinion, when he was there with Vanessa, I think that was the first time throughout the entire his time as the Bachelor where he realized, this is it. This could work. Like, this might be the woman I spend the rest of my life with. I think he just became so emotional and so overwhelmed. I was like, that is amazing. That's why I watch this show, for human moments like that.
Right.
Yeah.
And then since then, he's cried like 8 times. And I was like, well, that takes away from that moment.
It does. It took
And-
away from the moment,
And
and
it's
that
my
was the
own
most,
personal.
Yeah, that was the best crying moment still so far.
Oh, by far. So
Also,
that's my
when
own
he-
personal
When he
demons.
cried with Kristina, I like that too. Why
Yes.
Yeah,
I
that's
like
true.
that Nick's crying mainly because he always tells me to stop crying. That it's kind of funny to see it come out of him.
Yeah.
True.
You can throw it back on him.
Yeah.
Okay, many people watching and listening may be asking themselves the question of like, Jared and Ashley I on the show together. Maybe they're not following. Maybe they don't know that you guys
Yeah,
are
those
friends.
people are definitely the ones that don't follow us on Instagram. That's for sure.
Or Twitter.
Yeah.
Okay,
The
but
tweet.
so question, Jared, Ashley not cried so much on Bachelor in Paradise, would you have been like, a bit more interested?
I
Had you not
asked
cried?
him this question on my podcast, the I Don't Get It podcast, just a couple weeks ago, and he
Nice
made it
plug.
seem like
Yeah, plug it. What is the
I would
podcast?
have been a little bit more appealing had I not.
Really?
Really?
Well, I think it's very difficult. You're dealing with like a delicate flower almost, or like glass, you know? And I mean, you know this about yourself because it is very, you almost have to be, it's like you're walking on glass because you're like, anything I might say could easily just make you cry. And I don't even know what that would be. Like, it's not even anything bad. It could be just like, I don't know, you look tired and you could just be like, "Ah," and I'm like, wow, that's not a bad thing.
But at the same time, if I remember correctly, I didn't cry in front of you until you actually broke up with me on our first season of Paradise for the first time.
Probably, yeah, in front of me. Did you cry? Claire, I remember you cried.
Not in front of. Oh yeah, I had
Yeah.
to. I did still walk away. I just happened to cry on the bed a couple yards away from you.
And I remember, I don't know, I remember knowing you cried early.
Well, yeah, that's
I don't
the
know
thing.
if producers
You-
told
you
me
knew the
or if other
reputation.
cast told me.
Oh.
I don't even think it was reputation at that point, but I remember like maybe somebody coming over and being like, yeah, she's crying.
So were you just overwhelmed by how sensitive she was?
Overwhelmed, I don't think is the right term to use. I would just say guarded.
Okay.
Okay, do you feel like that may be happening to some of the contestants currently on Nick's season where he's cried a few times, where they may be having similar feelings towards Nick?
No.
No, I doubt it.
It's
It-
flattering to have somebody cry over you. To some
Totally,
extent.
absolutely.
So it's kind of there's kind of a maybe a double, I don't know to call it a double standard, a backward standard, or a different social rule there. So it could act one way but not the other.
I think also too, like Nick, like we were talking about before, his tears are very controlled. You know, they're just
He's the single tier.
yeah, it's like a
crier.
single tier
Yeah,
cry.
yeah.
You know,
Not
it's
like-
not an overwhelm like
They're not dramatic. They are sympathetic.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
Okay, cool. Well, now that we've covered that, everyone's on the same page. They know Ashley I Jared are here. Welcome to the show. We're super stoked to have you guys. Let's get into tonight's episode. It started off, as I kind of said here, we had this like proverbial to be continued, and we were all like, shit, of course this is going to happen. They're not going to show us the rose ceremony. I, for one, am like, can you just show us a rose ceremony in
Yeah.
one episode
I know.
once?
They
I
don't
don't know
do that
why they keep
anymore.
doing that. They've been doing that for the past couple of years because they started doing it
Every
on
time.
Caitlin's season. Everybody was like, "What are you doing?" And then I remember it happening on Paradise as well, and now they're continuing it Nick's season, and nobody seems to like it, but they keep doing it.
No,
So-
doing it.
yeah, that's what's really weird is they're not listening to the fans on this one. In Paradise, it makes more sense. There's so many more relationships.
Of course.
It doesn't necessarily fit at that moment. But here, I know people normally like the regularity of completing an episode.
And it's the whole idea of like somebody's going to get eliminated. That's what brings the suspense, the tension, and it's like, well, you find
Yeah.
out like halfway through an episode, so I don't think you're as emotionally invested as someone going home, and that's the last thing you see.
Jared, you nailed it. Because they lose you. They built all this momentum getting into the rose ceremony. You're like, yes. And then it's like, okay, if there was like a moment, it's too much time. A week to go by. We're so uninvested in that moment now. We're like, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
whoever.
Oh, somebody
that's-
goes home. Okay, well that's
Okay,
fine.
yeah,
Let's
that's
get to the
totally
next week.
true. Because
Yeah.
like Corinne went home, but if she went home after that hometown date directly, you would have felt, so much more for her.
Yeah, because you're just like it's resonating with you for a whole week.
Yes.
Yes.
Also, I would think that encourages people to go look at spoilers more because they're like, oh, I don't want to wait till next week. I'll just hit on reality.
Probably, you're right.
There's got to be some sort of type of like study that they've done where they've realized it actually helps them. Like I don't know what it is. Maybe they don't want people as emotionally invested. I don't know. I got nothing. But
Yeah.
it's something.
They're
There's
trying-
some reason they're
Well,
doing
they
it.
obviously
something.
figure, people will tune in next week to find out what happens.
Yes,
I
that's
mean,
a certain
yeah.
element to true.
So
Okay,
many
well, follow me on a
mysteries.
theory.
But
you
I think
guys.
people will do that anyway.
Right.
Follow me on this little theory that I'm thinking up while you guys are chatting. If you guys remember Juan Pablo's season, right? Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Juan Pablo's season, I feel like was the first time in Bachelor history, up until this point, like fans for the most part were loyal fans to the show.
Yeah.
And then Juan Pablo's season came around, and people were like a little hesitant, and then they really pushed Juan Pablo down our throats. They like, we love him, don't we?
Larry.
Yeah. And, like everybody was like, I guess, yeah, I love Juan Pablo. This is happening. But then people hated Juan Pablo.
Yeah.
And consequently, a lot of people stopped watching the show. And I've heard this from multiple fans that were like, Juan Pablo's season, I stopped watching.
Oh, really?
Like it was the first time I think fans were willing to say, I'm gonna consider whether or not I'm gonna step away. And now the show has added things like a 2-hour format. They're giving us the rose ceremonies
We've
after
always had a
big to be
2-hour format.
Well, they had a 1 hour, right? 2 hour was like a special, 2-hour special.
Brooks, you're wrong.
Really?
Yeah, it's always been 2 hours.
It has been?
Yeah.
All right, well, anyway, continue with this thought.
My thought being, like, after Juan Pablo's season, we saw a lot more marketing, a lot more PR in terms of, like, The Bachelor.
It became more of a tabloid sensation starting
It
then.
became huge, right? But now it's become less about love and more about drama. And I know I'm skipping ahead here, but I want to follow this story. When Raven was talking to Nick tonight, I looked at all of you guys, and you guys were all glued to the TV, right? And I feel like because we all watch the show for the same reason, like WWE fans watch the show for that one time when there's like something that's not supposed to happen happens.
Right.
We're looking for this love that happens against all odds. We know it's this weird experiment. And I felt like we felt that tonight with Raven when she was talking.
100%.
And I felt like that was the theme of the show for a long time. We've gotten so far away from that. And I'm saying this because chat roll is like, can't deal with Nick, want him off my TV, just found out he's on Dancing with the Stars, ugh, get his ass off TV.
No.
And so I'm wondering, has the show gotten far enough away from its original premise of love?
I don't think so, because I would argue last season, Ben Higgins. I would argue that it's probably one of the more romantic seasons that I've ever seen.
You haven't seen that many seasons.
I would agree, but everything I've heard, like, who's the best Bachelor in the history of the show?
Sean Lower Ben.
I think
Thank you.
Ben
Yeah.
is the best Bachelor, but I feel like I felt so much love with Ashley and JP. That was such a romantic season.
That's the Bachelorette.
Emily, you're right. And then I guess you're right. I guess I find the Bachelorette to be more romantic.
And don't get me wrong,
More
like it's not like they had,
romantic.
but then they've definitely done more drama. Like there's more controversy. I feel like because they'll have Corinne or they'll have Olivia or they'll have Chad and so on and so forth.
Right.
But like, I don't think necessarily like the show in general is moving away more from love because I felt very invested in the relationships Ben have. I just feel like Nick is a very guarded human being in general, and I think that's the way he's coming off on TV.
And we're just
is
not
very
seeing
guarded,
it.
and so people are like, okay, you're down to your final 3, and I don't feel as invested as I should.
Well, he really answers why he's been doing that to Andy in the beginning of the episode. He says he's been holding back because he has done this a zillion times, and he's like, well, I don't want to get to the end of this and be like, oh, I did it again, messed up again.
Exactly, and so it's totally understandable, but I think that's why people have beef, if they have any beef at all, is that he's being too guarded and he's not fully investing himself in the process.
So you
But
feel
oddly crying all the time, so he is emotionally invested into something.
Well, he's also got a soul, and like you know what I mean. Nick's a good guy. We all agree that. So I
Yeah.
feel like he knows like how hard it is to be on the other side. So I think he's definitely got a sympathetic factor.
Yeah, the
And
sympathetic,
do you think
guilty.
that sympathetic factor is coming off as A, disingenuous, or B, as you put it earlier, pessimistic in terms of like the process?
No, I don't think his sympathy is coming off as any type of pessimistic like side or what was the other word you said? Not arrogant, but what did you say?
Disingenuous?
Disingenuous. I don't think he's disingenuous at all. I think Nick is just in general, and we've all seen it on TV. Like, I don't know. It's actually kind of hard because I feel like we were talking about it before. Like, I remember watching Nick on Kaylin's season, like watching it back, and one of the things I always noticed about Nick is he's always like. He's always touchy-feely, right?
Right.
He's
Right.
always like he's always like almost like fully investing. Like he's just putting his heart out there.
Yeah.
And I think maybe because he's gone through his 3 processes and has failed each time, not failed, but you know what I mean, that he might be holding himself back until like the last one. But by the time you get to the final rose, it's almost
might
too
be too
late.
late.
Definitely
Maybe
too
he's
late.
doing that because he doesn't want to hurt these girls. Like, he doesn't want to feel like him in the past.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree with you 100%. But it's also, as a viewer, I can understand why
I think
people are
that's
like,
probably
why are
what's
you
happening.
not? And like, why are you not like?
He doesn't
falling
want
in love?
anyone to feel the way he has when Andy knocked on the door that one morning.
Exactly. He's too
Or-
worried about leading any of these girls on.
I don't
Yeah.
believe that. As a viewer, I don't see that at all. As a viewer, I see this being the Nick show and it being all about him, and that at this point I don't really believe that he's in love with any of these women or that he's even there for them. I kind of feel like he's there because he's the Bachelor and he wants to finish this ride.
Well, you're not alone. Chat roll seems to agree. I'm listening. Some people say, hey, I agree with you, Jared. I feel like Nick's in this. He's too guarded. He shouldn't be the Bachelor. He's been bad for TV as far as the Bachelor process
also-
goes because of his
He's always
reservations.
been good for TV. I would.
I'm
I think
just
he's been
reading.
great for TV.
Yeah.
Great to TV. Okay.
I think he's just like you said, like, but it's also hard. Like, I totally understand where people are coming from, but at the same time, this is a very real experience. So, like, it's very normal for someone, even if they're the Bachelor, to be guarded. Now, whether you agree with that or not is a different argument, but you have to see it from Nick's perspective as well.
Okay, so let's go back to the whole situation with Andy and Nick, because I took their conversation very differently. So he was saying he was a little bit guarded, right? And he was nervous about the fantasy suites, and part of that is because he doesn't want to make the same mistakes that he has in the past. But I saw it as like, he doesn't want to sleep with all 3 women because he doesn't want to look bad. Like, I kind of feel like...
I don't think that.
You don't think so?
No.
You think it's all about the other women?
Yeah, when I thought, like, when I knew that Nick was the Bachelor, I kind of said, I bet you he doesn't sleep with all 3 of them, because I don't think that he ever wants to be in the position that he has been in the past, and thinking, like, this is really confusing, you know? If you make love, like he said he did with Andy, and then you don't pick him, you're like, oh, so that night meant nothing. Or it just didn't mean as much. It's just a whole, if we're talking about leading somebody on, that is the way to lead someone on.
And I totally agree with Ashley. I think that Nick doesn't want to sleep with them because, like, the last thing he would want to do, being through this process, is try to explain to the person that you end up picking that, okay, well, because they're going to ask, like, what happened to the other 2 fantasy suites? And it's like, well, you know, and then you want to be truthful, obviously. So I understand where Nick's coming from that. I think also it's very difficult because Nick has been through this process so many times that he's looking at it not only from his perspective, but from the outside. Like, he's looking at it from being the perspective of being a bachelorette contestant and a Bachelor in Paradise contestant, and also being the Bachelor. So while he's fully invested, like, because you can't really worry about leading people on. I know that sounds so terrible, but in this process, you have to fully invest yourself and
in each relationship
and let it go. Because, like, say he doesn't sleep with any of the girls because he's too afraid, because maybe he's confused on who he's going to pick, obviously, between Raven and Vanessa now, because we know Rachel's the Bachelorette. So maybe he truly is confused about who he's going to end up with. So he's like, you know what, I'm not going to sleep with anybody because I'd rather just not, like, tell the person that I end up with that I slept with the other girl as well. But having said that, like, that's, I don't know, I just don't think that's fully investing in the relationship, and getting engaged with someone that you haven't slept with is, I don't know.
Okay,
it's a long story.
So
but.
being that we're kind of on that topic, there's a bunch of stuff that we need to cover in tonight's episode. We're gonna have to skip over some things. You guys have seen the show, you know what happened last night, but we see Corinne go home, right? She doesn't get a rose. We hear Corinne in the limo, basically in her exit, cry. She basically says that she's no longer going to throw herself at men. So I think we all know that Corinne is going to be in Bachelor in Paradise, right? Do you feel like, I guess, what do you guys see Corinne's new role as in Bachelor in Paradise? What kind of attitude is she going to have?
I mean, first off, I love what she said. I think it rings true to me. I'm like, yeah, that's advice that I think I need to take in my own life. But in Paradise, you know, she's going to have that being her leading in line.
Right.
But she's going to be just like me, who I said, I'm not going to cry this time, and then she'll probably throw herself at multiple guys.
So you think she's like...
You think she will?
Here's some lip service.
No, I think she's going to have fun.
Yeah, I think she will too.
Like, even on her exit, like, what I give Corinne the most credit about is that she's always Corinne. Like, even on her exit, she could have easily just been like, I loved him, I'm so sad, and, like, play the sympathetic card.
Right.
And then she was just like, you know what? Screw this.
Yeah.
And, like, I'm not throwing myself at guys. Like, I don't care. Like, they can come after me. Oh, it's so Corinne, which is what I really enjoyed.
But it was,
and I want to sleep.
But it was such a good attitude, and an attitude that I feel like every woman should have, or every man, like, after you are broken up with. It's like, screw them. Like, I know my self-worth, so if they don't think that I'm good enough for them, then I don't need them.
But that's why I loved that exit, because we never see that. It's always, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me?
But she did say that.
But then she came around, she's like...
But then, you know, she came to her, like, wake moment in the limo, and she was like, no, this isn't about me.
And I gotta give Corinne credit, because I think that, like, anybody who questions her authenticity, like, that exit was just, like, it was so on par with everything that she's done led up to that.
Yeah.
If she did, like, a complete 180 and was like, I'm so bad, like, it's only me, like, pity party, then it wouldn't have been Corinne. But it wasn't that, and it was so Corinne, and that's what I really enjoyed about the exit, because it was like, that girl has not changed.
I am mildly obsessed with her.
It's interesting because me too. She is such a confident woman, but, like, you see her being so insecure and so vulnerable, like, throughout the whole season, like, just even feeling like she has to get naked to, like, get Nick's attention, or, like, have to buy him a wardrobe to, like, impress him on a date, you know? So I feel like she went out in a really great way.
Yeah.
Totally.
One of my favorite Corinne moments from the past couple of weeks was 2 weeks ago, when she was freaking out over maybe not getting a rose that week. And that's what we do, you know? that's what I don't know about you. You probably were confident the entire way through.
No. I had my moments.
Well, we'd like freak out like, oh, tonight's my night. I know I'm going home. I know I'm going home. And she was so vocal about that, and they showed it, and I love that because that's how insecure we really are once those weeks keep dwindling down.
Yeah, she said something like, I don't know what the conversations are like that he's having in those relationships. I mean, but would that make a difference if you had a magic camera that like showed you all of a sudden those relationships?
You can prepare yourself mentally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I like to be aware of what's going on around me. I feel like knowledge is power.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
Let's assume that there was a camera following these other things, and Corinne could just sit down and watch the relationship between Nick and Vanessa, because she commented, I don't know what their relationships are like, and we hear that a lot, and I think I even said that too, like I don't know what's going on in those other relationships.
Of course, nobody knows.
It dawned on me tonight, like, would that even make a difference? Like, I probably would be more insecure in that moment.
Absolutely.
If you knew
If I knew what was going on,
I'd rather put blinders on.
I'd rather keep them on.
Yeah, all I want to do is
Weird
focus on her, because those things are outside of my control, and the more thought that I put into that relationship, the worse my relationship with her becomes.
Agreed.
But don't you feel like there's a general feeling in the house? Like, can't you kind of tell?
It depends on the
relationship-
week. That's the thing. At the beginning, you can have a pretty strong sense of where you stand. He didn't feel like that off the top. I felt so confident the first couple weeks.
I felt awful the first couple weeks. I mean, I thought that she really liked me, but I was like,
Did you feel like
she could like 18 other guys more than me? Like, how the hell am I gonna know? But then, like, once we hung out more, I was like, okay, like, this girl really likes me. To the point where, like, when I went into the rose ceremony, I was actually fairly confident that I was going to stay.
How do you think that Raven is feeling in her relationship with Nick now? They've gone to the fantasy suite. We can talk about Raven and Nick as much as we want. We don't have a ton of time left, but it feels like we saw a new side of Raven that we didn't get to see before. Do you feel like Raven is feeling the same feeling that you had? Like, okay, he's into me. Like, I have a really,
she even
really
said
good
it.
chance.
Yeah, she was like, she even said in the date, she was like, just judging by Nick's attitude, his body language, like, I feel like he's in love with me back. He just can't say it. So I think that she's super confident.
Yeah, I think she's confident too.
Yeah, but I mean, we'll see. We'll see what happens in the fantasy suite.
But
like,
I don't think she thinks she's winning confident.
Right, I don't think so either.
That's tough. I mean, it's pretty. Yeah.
Your confidence could be in winning confidence. It's just you don't see it with Nick. Is that what you're saying?
Jared's season was different because hometowns were a little bit weird, but we should mention that once you get to hometowns, once you're in the top 4, then you really have no idea who's the front runner
because you're not with each other.
You don't talk to the girls. You're
Yeah,
completely
yeah.
separated at that point.
That's so scary.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I would drive myself crazy during that week.
Yeah.
I could only imagine. So, what did you guys think about Raven's profession of love? Like, this, I think, was probably one of the biggest and probably the most beautiful moments in the entire season so far. You thought it was awkward?
No, I thought it was very eloquent. I was like,
eloquent, yes.
I thought it was very, very well stated.
It was beautiful, and I can't believe it's the first guy that she's ever said I love you to. I mean, are you guys surprised by that? Do you believe that?
I believe that.
Of course I believe it.
Absolutely.
Totally.
I don't know. I liked it. I think it was so well done. I have to go back and rewatch it. I think I was a little dazed out, but she said it really nicely, and it's just like, oh, it sucks that you're telling the first I love you to a guy that is getting told this by different girls every
all the
week,
time.
but
Totally.
you're wasting it a little bit, but...
Yeah, I like Raven a lot. It's just, I think, and it's hard coming from, like, we know Nick, so it's... I just never imagined Nick to be with a girl like Raven.
Still.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, she's beautiful. She's great. Those two together, I just don't see it. But, listen, Nick throws surprises all the time, so...
You guys know Nick, too, to a certain extent. Do you guys feel the same way we do?
I definitely don't know Nick like that
well
to, like,
enough.
judge who he would choose to be in a relationship with. I think Raven's definitely very different than Andy and Caitlin.
And even
But
different than
Vanessa is
Vanessa.
so in line with Andy and Caitlin.
Right.
Especially Andy.
With
more
Andy,
so
I
Andy.
could see
But
that.
maybe he's just going against his type, and he's like, I really like Raven, and I'm going on this train.
But I really like Raven.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
she's so
Who doesn't
likable.
like
I think
Raven?
she's so sweet, and I think that she's honestly there to fall in love. So
Yeah.
I believe that could happen. I think that they have one of the best.
That's such an interesting statement that you just said, because I always have problems when people say the right reasons.
Right.
I've always had issues with that.
Why?
Tell us
Because-
about that. Why is that?
Because whoever goes into this process from night one without ever meeting this person prior, going in thinking that they are going to marry this person, that they're going to fall in love with this person, I think that's the wrong mindset to have. You have to go in with an open mind for the experience, and you hope that something great comes from
This
it.
is his
Okay.
hindsight view right now. It's funny because I said the exact
Totally.
same
Hindsight,
thing. This is the
I will say
exact
that
same thing I
100%.
said when I was on 2 weeks ago. You know, I said, you know, you're crazy if you're there for the right reasons. You should be there for the experience as a whole. But like, yeah, when we were in Paradise together for the first time, he was all like.
Oh, yeah, I thought I was getting engaged.
He was like, oh god, he was like, my wife's not here, so I'm not going on a date with anyone.
Oh yeah, totally. I was 100%. But that's why I look back upon it. I'm like, I was wrong.
And that's
So.
why I like, we still like, we're open about it. Like, it's weird because I still feel like there was like some little bit of bitterness because he was just so closed off.
Yeah.
to
Well,
me
what are you gonna do?
completely, yeah.
But no, it's a very common question that people ask, right? They'll ask you,
Are
like,
they there for the right?
do you really feel like people go on that show looking for love? I get that question a lot, and I'm like, what would you do? And they're like, well, I'd go because it's an experience. I'm like, it's the same reason everybody else goes.
And
like,
there's nothing wrong with that. Now, if you are in the if you're not feeling it, if you're that person who's like, I'm just gonna go as far as I can and not like care,
Right.
And then because that's a scary proposition, because then like this is a very real experience, and so you don't want to like be with somebody who ends up not liking them back.
Can I
Okay, but I
ask
think
a
this
question to Brooks for a sec?
yeah.
Okay, so you decided to pull yourself out of it
Yep.
because you weren't up
And
to
then
par
you
with her
pulled.
feelings.
When did you pull yourself out? Top three.
Three.
Yeah.
So when did you make that decision to do it in week 3? Or that week, top 3?
I made the decision probably 2 weeks prior, and the producers were like, "No, trust us. We're the experts. We know this is weird. This is weird process. You don't know how to process your feelings. Basically, believe us." And they really pushed for hometown dates. And in hindsight, I was like, "Oh, hometown date, duh," because I have a big family. It makes for a good hometown date. And as soon as the hometown date was over, the next morning, like no joke, they flipped a switch. They're like, "Yeah, you should go home."
Oh,
and I was
really?
like, "Oh shit." Like, what do they have planned? Like, am I going to be the whipping boy? Like, am I going to come off as an asshole? So that and it to the point that we were talking about before we got on the show, Jared, of me crying. Speaking of man tears, I think I'm up there in terms of like the man tears. A big part of that was just I was exhausted in playing out the scenarios of what was going to happen and somewhat fighting the producers on what I really wanted to do and them trying to manipulate that, And so I felt like, okay, it's not finally over, and oh crap, she legitimately is crying. I don't. Now I
Right.
feel worse.
It's
Yeah, it's
one
tough.
of the most painful moments I've ever watched on the show.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
It was
hard.
pretty rough.
Yeah.
Well,
But anyway, to answer your question, but I do but I do
note.
think that Raven is falling in love. Let me say that.
Okay, and
if
I
not
don't,
in love.
I don't mean
Yeah.
this like they're necessarily for like to find fame or like for the right reasons, but I mean it like there's some people who are ready to be married and who aren't. And I feel like a lot of the people who go on the show really are not like I feel like when you're 23, 24 years old, like you're not ready to get married and settle down.
I think Raven seems to be displaying the only one that is ready.
And that's what
out
I'm
of Vanessa
saying.
and Rachel, and
So I
at
think-
least to Nick.
And maybe it's in part from like where she's from. She has her own business. Like she probably can pick up and move. I don't know. Like I don't think that Corinne would necessarily do that, or Rachel would do that, or even Vanessa. But I feel like
You don't think Rachel would do that?
I don't think so.
She's the
For Nick.
bachelorette,
I don't
so-
think she would do it for Nick.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And she can make the guy move to her.
And I think that's
Valid
probably
point.
what she
Of course,
would do.
that's obviously a dual
Yeah.
conversation that you need to have,
Yeah.
a decision.
Do you feel like because kind of talking about these relationships and how they're developing, we saw in last week's hometown dates that Nick and Vanessa haven't really talked about their future and like in terms of Quebec and stuff. Do you feel like that's evidence of that relationship not developing?
Not at all. To me, when I was seeing people's reaction to that and the family's reaction to that, I was like, you wouldn't talk about that until you're in the fantasy suite. I don't think you're going to talk about the future of your career and where you're going to live until you're in the fantasy suite, right?
I mean, top 3, top 4. What's really the difference?
Yeah. Okay.
might as well start
okay,
the
fine.
conversation,
So,
you know?
Fine. So,
But so it's not a real
but I don't think
indicator,
that's
though, of,
really
like-
a big deal that they haven't discussed that yet.
Well, we saw
Yeah,
that there was
I
some
don't know.
tension
I
there
think that's
between.
a big deal.
I was about to say, because it depends on what Vanessa feels. Like, if she loves her job, which she appears to love her job, be with her family in Montreal, like,
Those aren't the kind of things that we're encouraged to talk about while filming a date scene. That's what I'm trying to say.
well, I mean, I think you talk about whatever you feel like you need to talk about.
I guess I don't think I've been on enough Bachelor dates. Like, I've only been on Paradise dates, and they're completely different because then you can talk in real life. Like, you can talk on,
different.
like, you know, you just have so many more opportunities to talk.
Yeah, but it's like, you know.
Like, did you talk to Caitlin about, like, your career?
Yeah, on the road trip.
And, like, where you wanted to be in the future?
Not really.
Exactly.
Not like moving. No. We
Yeah.
never got to that conversation.
Yeah, and that was hometowns. You know,
I
you
guess
got to
that's
four.
true.
So do you think, back to Vanessa, do you feel like we saw a little bit of tension in the preview on their date? Do you think some tension from the hometown date has been building in Vanessa's mind, and that's being carried out on this date, and we're not going to see this amazing date that we are all anticipating on the Fantasy Suite?
I just want Nick and Vanessa to be happy. I just want the date to go well, because like they had a bad. The hometown was just like not
kind of
the
flat.
greatest. Yeah, and it's like no.
You
like,
two are supposed to be
yes,
together.
this is it. This is what I want. Like, have a good date.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like now to see a preview where like they're arguing, it's like, damn it, no.
Jared and I looked at each other when we saw that preview.
Yeah.
We're like, is this really happening
Like,
again?
no, you guys are final three. I want love. I don't want any more arguments. I want them arguing of whether they are going to end up with Nick. Like, no
think
more
they're
arguments
like-
between
And
each
it
other.
kind of stinks because Rachel's totally out of place. So like,
So
her
why
whole love
well,
story is
well,
not
we
even
didn't
in
see her in
question.
this episode.
We didn't
but
even-
Still,
Yeah.
But it's so frustrating because like we were talking about it when like they would put Rachel on the television screen. And it's like, like I'm really excited for her future. I'm really excited to see her own season. But like seeing her with Nick is just so it's frustrating and it's maddening to a point because I'm like, damn it, I already know. Like I just feel bitter about it.
This
Yeah.
was me 2 weeks ago. Christina, how fired up were we? I went home and I ranted
Oh,
even
about
more
Rachel?
about the
We were
reveal.
Oh wait, did I tell you guys this? You weren't here. I announced it to our AfterBuzz audience last week. But so one of my clients happens to be a producer for The Bachelor, and he was telling me, he was like, "Do you know when we chose Rachel to be the Bachelorette?" And I
Yeah,
was
like
"When?"
during next season.
He said that she was chosen before Nick was chosen to be the Bachelor.
What?
Yeah, that's what he said.
You're out of here.
That's what he said. I guess they like
When in auditions they love
the
her
auditions,
they
they're
love
that
her
like,
much.
that much.
boom.
They're like, she is going to be our Bachelorette.
Oh,
Well, that
I
kind of
hope
ruins
not.
everything.
Yeah,
That
it just
makes
leaves
it
a
seem
bad
like-
taste in my mouth.
That makes it seem
I'm
like he
sorry
was
to
forced
disappoint
into taking her to number 3.
Yeah, like does that even mean that like
But he
their
also
relationship?
followed up saying, and it was just great that they had a natural chemistry.
And we didn't have to
relationship
force it like we
anyways.
forced Juan Pablo.
God.
Diversity choice.
Yeah, well, Juan Pablo was
Juan
just.
Pablo doesn't count.
Yeah, that was like an anomaly. They were like, "Oh shit, my bad." Like
Yeah,
that's
that
our
was
fault, guys. We
terrible.
picked the wrong guy.
Well,
I greatly enjoyed his season. It was great
it
drama.
was a great it was a
Yeah.
great show.
Guys, we need to talk about this really quickly because chat roll is freaking out about Nick being announced to be on Dancing with the Stars. What are your thoughts about Nick being on Dancing with the Stars, and then also Caitlin's reaction to the whole thing?
I liked Caitlin's reaction because I think that there's a lot of things that we want to pursue after the fact that we're not super encouraged to do. So I felt her on that. But I also think it's annoying that we've only seen bachelors on Dancing with the Stars and we haven't seen any bachelorettes. And
That's
I
crazy.
think
I didn't even
Caitlin
realize
would have
that.
killed it.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think it's really frustrating if Caitlyn wanted to do it and they said no because we want you to only focus on your relationship, whatever the tweet said. Then I think that's 100% wrong. Like if Caitlyn and Sean decided that they wanted to focus on the relationship, then of course not do it. But if they were both in a place where they said, like, you can go do it, I'll be there. Like I'll be there when you're done.
Right.
So then like that's not up to the ABC producers. Let her have an opportunity to have an awesome experience. And so, I mean, I'm excited for Nick to do Dance with the Stars. I'm excited to watch.
Yeah,
But-
I'm excited to watch. Like, I'll actually watch Dancing with the Stars now.
Yeah,
and
and
I
I
think
think
a
he's-
lot of Bachelor will roll over.
And I think he's
Yeah.
going to crush it. I will say that.
I think he's going to do a
I
really
think
good
he's
job
going to
with
kill
it.
it. But
He's
I
definitely be top 3.
You think so, right?
Yeah.
I think so
Yeah.
too.
I mean,
His bod, they're gonna make him shirtless as much as
Definitely.
possible.
and he's
Yeah.
got moves, and he'll be great. So yeah, I mean, listen, that's a conversation for Nick and whoever he picked if he picks someone. So
Do you think that he'll turn out to be a Sean Lowe post Dancing with the Stars or a Chris Soules?
Oh, I don't think we can talk about it. I don't think that we want to see them together before we can make that judgment.
I know, but
Yeah.
it seems like the announcement, and I feel like this is what chat roll's alluding to, is the fact that if you announce somebody so early on Dancing with the Stars and he's already being poised to be someone who's going to not choose somebody, that it's like, we're done.
Wasn't Chris a surprise?
What, you
He
think
was
the
a
Bachelor is
surprise-
giving up on him?
I think Bachelor fans are like giving up, going like, if he's on Dancing with the Stars, and that's being announced right now, like, and we're already seeing that he's not invested in women like Ben was, because they're drawing parallels between Ben's relationships with his women in Final Four and his Final Four.
Of course, and let me say
and now
this.
they're like, I think that it's safe to say that like Nick doesn't choose somebody.
Let me preface this by saying that it's unfair to compare Nick to Ben, and I do it as well because, first of all, they're two very different people. They have two very different group of women, two different seasons, so it's very hard to compare. Like, Ben was just awesome. Like, in my opinion, Ben was the best Bachelor this show has ever seen. So it's like very difficult to compare. Just like whoever replaces Tom Brady, even if they're awesome, it's going to be very difficult to compare to Tom Brady. You know, not to put that analogy in there, but you know what I mean. So, but having said that, I just think like give Nick a chance. You know what I mean? Obviously, you know, you might have some reservations about this whole experience, but give him a chance.
But at the same time, Nick is the one who said to Andy, like, I don't know if I'm going to be choosing any of them.
He's just saying that to throw it out there and make a little
Definitely.
twist.
I know, but still, like,
It's certainly
for
disheartening
people who
to hear
are
that.
watching, yeah, it is disheartening.
Because you want your lead to be like, I'm in
love.
love.
Did anyone watch Brad Womack's season where he didn't pick anyone?
No,
And I gotta go back and watch that.
I didn't see it.
But everybody was super mad.
well, I think Nick is going to choose someone.
He's gonna definitely choose
Yeah.
someone. He's not gonna do it 4 times then not choose someone.
No.
Yeah.
And I hope whoever he chooses, that they are very happy together, you know, and then they can make it work. And I think that's so messed up to say that just because he's going to be on Dancing with the Stars that he doesn't want to make his relationship work.
No,
Yeah,
I think that's
but-
no. I think that.
What you think?
Historically, it has been very bad for relationships. Even Sean talks about in his book how much of a strain that was. He really wasn't
Really?
sure if he and Catherine were going to make it through that.
Because
and then,
of Dancing with the Stars?
Yes.
Because you spend more time with the person that you're dancing
Yeah.
with than you do your
Interesting.
And it's
Yeah.
great afterwards, which is very difficult as well. Because if Nick is with someone right now, then like, you know, obviously they can't be seen, so it's like a very stressful environment for those two. So
And
and
then
then like
you can go
immediately
straight
afterwards,
into
Dancing
that.
with the Stars. So I can
Right.
see how difficult it is. But
And then
that
Chris
is-
and Whitney broke up because of it, really, to be honest.
Really, that's why?
It was so much of a strain.
But let's also put in perspective, this is a decision between Nick and if he did pick someone, whoever that
His.
person is.
Yeah.
That's their decision, because you never know, they might be like hunky-dory about it, and then they might end up and get married and have kids and be happy ever after. So we'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, I'm just saying. Playing devil's advocate.
Yeah, you guys. I think it's crazy. I think we also are waiting for next week. We have Rachel's date to see. We have Vanessa's date.
Yeah, I can't
don't
wait to
think
see
we're-
Rachel's.
We're not super interested in Rachel's, but may I pose an alternate ending to all of our expectations? What if, and I know this seems unlikely, but hyperbolize with me, what if Rachel is kind of like a Kayla and Vanessa doesn't get chosen?
No
and,
way.
And her heart is broken. Just play
No
No way.
She becomes a JoJo, and we're all like, "No, we can't have Rachel."
No way.
We
No
want
way.
Vanessa. Would that ever
Pardon,
happen?
I'm so lost. You got me at Kayla, but
If they rip if like Vanessa doesn't get picked, and Vanessa's obviously universally loved, and then like say she doesn't get picked and Raven wins, would they pull the carpet underneath Rachel's feet? No way.
Brooks, that was
Okay.
ridiculous.
Okay, look,
if anything, I would predict, if we want to make like crazy predictions,
Yeah,
is
let's
that
do it.
the
Crazy
final 2 would be
predictions.
between Rachel and Vanessa.
No way.
Or Rachel and Raven. And that way you can be like, but then the whole thing is there's no suspense in the finale, and why would you ever do that? So
The
it's pretty
only-
much a given that Rachel goes home this week, right?
Well,
Definitely.
Or, what if, like, they are pointing to the idea that he could pick no one, so maybe they do put Rachel in the final 2, and he's like, holy shit, is he really not going to pick anybody? Because we already know Rachel's the Bachelorette.
You know,
Yeah.
So that could build
actually-
suspense and,
That is a good point.
tension. But I don't see it. I'd see Rachel going home and Raven and Vanessa being the final 2 and really building that anticipation of, like, who he's going to pick, if he's going to pick anybody, rather than putting Rachel in there.
Well, next week is going to be, I feel like, one of my favorite episodes because we have not only the final 2 fantasy dates between Rachel and Raven, but it's also Women Tell All, which I feel like is kind of the highlight of the season.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't like the tell-alls.
Really? You don't think so? I think they're definitely really interesting. You get to see all the past castmates that you kind of forgot about, and you're like, oh wait, I really liked her.
You know why I don't like it? Because
Why?
these past castmates that you would never ever think of, they try to get their shining star moment so that
That's
they can get
true.
cast on Paradise. And they tell them, like, talk a lot, and then maybe the audience will really resonate with you. And then all we do is keep hearing these crazy arguments from these people we don't give a crap about.
I guess that's true. I see what
And
you're saying.
I think it's also tough for like people that have been through the experience because like we put ourselves like we understand how difficult it is for the Bachelor, the Bachelorette, and it's like, well, they can't pick everybody,
Right.
You know, so anybody who has like a feud, like, why didn't you give me a shot, blah 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 blah. I think we just see it more from their eyes.
We also know that it's like 4 hours long and it's
To tape
freezing in
it.
there, and you're like,
Yeah.
I'm so bored.
I'm excited to see. Hey, I was about to say the good thing is Corinne's back on.
Exactly. I
She
think
was
that's why I'm
gone
so
for a
excited
moment,
about
and
it.
now she's back, baby.
Back, baby.
God, oh God, that's awesome.
That's beautiful. All
I
right.
can't wait for. I cannot wait for Paradise. I just cannot wait to watch that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bachelor in Paradise.
Do you think she's
4.
100% going to be on
Yeah.
it then?
If she's not,
What?
she better be.
No, she's on.
They would pay her like $1 million to be on it.
To be fair, we were saying the same thing about Olivia last year.
And she didn't go on it.
No, she's not. She's not a
But
Corinne.
Chad posted a
But-
photo recently, this last week, of
Yeah.
him and Corinne and Olivia.
Yeah.
Would we
Yeah.
see all 3 of them? This is Olivia's, maybe.
I mean,
Olivia says no, but we'll see as the time nears.
I mean, we'll see.
So who would you guys, from the past Bachelor alumni, who would you choose for Corinne? If you had to set her up with anyone.
Nick?
Nick? Really?
No, I could see them two together. No, I don't.
Who said earlier that Nick and Andy should be together?
I did.
No, yeah.
There's still
You're-
something there when
I
I watch
agree with
it.
you, and I was watching that too.
They like hate love each other. There's so much hate going
Yeah.
on. It's
Definitely.
a passion, and I just feel like they want to grab each other
Like,
and
and dress
throw
each
against
other.
the wall.
50 Shades of Grey style.
Yeah.
Who for Corinne? I'd say Joe Bailey.
Oh my God, I was
Wait a
gonna say
minute.
Joe.
Kayla was here last week, and that's what she said too.
Really?
Joe Bailey.
I was just gonna say that, and I was like, is that really a thing?
That's
Joe Bailey. I would. Yeah, dude. He would. I think they'd be perfect.
Throw down together. It would be amazing.
I think they'd be perfect though. Like.
Corinne,
Get
if you're
Joe back
listening,
on the
Joe.
show.
Yeah, because yeah, I'm in. Joe Bailey and Corinne. Get Joe Bailey from Kentucky back into Mexico, and let's do this
I feel
thing.
like we should call him in right now.
I think that's a good place for us to end tonight.
Okay.
Bachelor in Paradise, let's get Joe on the show.
Get Joe on Bachelor in Paradise.
Forget Chad. Joe should come in and be really the villain. Not even the villain again, but he should have a showdown with Chad.
Yeah,
I
super
think
villain on
great.
super
I
villain.
honestly though, I think that if Joe went back on Paradise, people would
love
really start to
him.
love him again, because if he's featured more, they'd be like, oh, okay, he's fine. He's not as bad as we thought he was going to be.
Joe is one of the most misunderstood
Misunderstood.
characters from The Bachelor.
And he does
use
it to
a line-
himself.
to use a line that Chad likes to use. I'm just misunderstood.
Oh yeah.
Well, yeah.
But I don't think he really
I don't
is.
know
when
about
he's
that
like,
one.
Fuck off, Chris Harrison. I think we heard you loud and clear. And yet they're inviting him back. So they're
And
like,
there'll
we'll see,
probably
we'll
be
see.
extra security. No, apparently it's official.
Yeah.
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 And we'll
Special.
see.
Okay, you guys. Ashley, you have a podcast, and
I do.
I want to hear about it. Where do we find it? What's
You
the
can
name?
get it on iTunes, and I should probably start putting it up on SoundCloud for people who don't have iTunes. I don't know who those people are. But I do get asked that at least once a week. It's called the I Don't Get It podcast, and we talk about things that I don't get, mostly guys, but also, relationship questions like, can you fart and poop in front of a significant other at a
when's
certain
the right
point?
time?
When is the right time? We talk about
Do you
how
use
many...
toilet paper wipes? What's your process?
Yeah,
Do you
use
double
poopery?
flush? Do you
use the
flush it like as soon as it
poopery?
goes to try to get the smell
You
away?
definitely have to do the courtesy flush, that I'm sure of. And then there's other things like how many chances, how many dates you should give a certain person. And then we just talk about girly things like beauty and hair and blah, blah, blah.
That sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm tuning in.
Thank you.
I haven't listened to an episode yet.
Jared's
I'm
on.
going in.
He was on last week's episode. We just talked about guy advice, pretty much. Like
Cool.
I asked
Yeah.
him guy questions that
Yeah.
most girls question.
Yeah. Get a
And-
guy's perspective in there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Why are we so dumb?
Yep.
Good question.
Why are we so dumb?
And then this week he's actually going to be on again, and we're talking more directly about how many chances you give somebody. Do you give 3 dates, 4 dates?
And who's the perfect person to ask about that? Because we also have Carly on the show.
Yes, and
Well,
Carly.
as I'm not promoting her show, but I was there.
Yeah, so Carly comes on and she talks about how many days it really took to end up falling for Evan, and whether she would have had she not had the Bachelor in Paradise experience.
Yeah, because
Probably not. She probably would have signed off on that.
He would have won her over
She
in
would have
Nashville.
forced to be together. They were forced to be together, and it happened. But
they went cold hot real fast. So she had that like atomic kiss that she was like, and then she had this weird comment in the next episode. She was like, I love him. I was like, what?
well, we were there. We experienced it. It was real.
Yeah. Hey, you never know what will happen once you like open yourself up. Sometimes it happens fast.
Now, do you have a podcast too, Jared?
No, I do not, but I am starting one.
Okay, well, what is it?
Well, I think it's just to kind of bounce off Ashley. I think it's very interesting. Like I always read Men's Journal or Men's Health or GQ, where it's always like guy-orienting questions of like, how do I get my girlfriend to do this?
Yeah.
How do I, spice up my relationship with my wife?
16 tips for your best sex ever.
Exactly, or like even just like with making yourself more of like an eligible bachelor.
Yeah.
And I think it would be very interesting to talk about dating and relationship, but from a guy's perspective, because I feel like I listen to a lot of podcasts, but it's always from a woman's perspective, and so it's very difficult to get a guy's ideas or advice from there. So what I really want to do is bring more guys in from the Bachelor franchise to really talk about that, and women can tune in and get a guy's perspective, and a guy can listen to try to get more advice of how to get a woman.
What's it going to be called? Do you know?
I'm toying around with ideas. Have you ever seen Crazy Stupid Love?
Yes.
All right, there's a particular line in there that I
seen
absolutely love. Yeah, no, come on. Why are you looking at me? He said it.
I'm like,
I was like, I've seen it.
waiting for your second movie.
No, but there's a particular line where Ryan Gosling goes up to Steve Carell and he's like, be better than The Gap. And so I was like, man, I would love to name my podcast that. Be better than The Gap podcast.
That's great.
And so,
That's
we'll
a good line.
Or he could call it the I Get It podcast.
Yeah, I mean,
He's
that's
like,
a good one.
Ashley, let's do something separately.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Thank you guys for being on the show tonight.
No, thank you,
We had a
guys.
fantastic time. Kristina, where can people find you?
You guys can find me across social media at Miss Zias and at MissZias.com.
And where's that blog at?
MissZias.com.
I love it. You guys, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening and for your questions here on Chat Roll. For those of you who weren't on Chat Roll, get on Chat Roll so we can participate with you guys. Anyway, have a good night. We'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.